Alrighty, welcome back everybody. We're going to take apart the Bissell Spotbot today, and as you can see we've got two of them, and I don't know if they work. I've plugged one of them in and it sort of did some stuff, but we're going to investigate that here in a moment. Now this one says Spotbot Pet, this one says Spotbot Pet Deluxe, but I've looked them over completely and I'm convinced that they're identical to each other, so I think they just renamed it. Anyway, the first thing we're going to do here is plug them both in and run them through some cycles, because I know that like this one would go through its cycle, but it was having a real problem with suction, and I haven't tested this one at all, and so we're going to find out which one is doing which and then decide which one to take apart. So just in case you don't know what this is at all, this is a carpet cleaner that is made to clean up a pet mess or any kind of other mess that you have made. Any mess that's small enough to fit inside this area right here. And the idea is you have a spot, say the spot is right there, and you put this on there and it just works on it for a while and cleans it all up until it says it's done, and then you take it away and everything's clean. But what it does is it spins and kneads, and like those are hard like rakes there to work the stain, and then these are softer bristles, and then there's suction, and basically it's got a whole program that it goes through to get the stain up all within that plastic area. So we're going to turn this one on and see what it does. Okay, clearly that one does something. Let's try this one. Ooh, nothing. Okay, so clearly the reason why this one was thrown away is because these two cycles don't do anything. But the hose, so the hose suction does work, or possibly works, we'll find out. But in comparison to this one, when you turn it on, it does its thing. So this one is broken. You know what we're probably going to end up doing is just take them both apart. Okay, so removing the chemical tank and the collection tank has exposed some screws here. Just two on this side that I can see so far, and two on this side. And I have a temptation to try to take the whole top off, but I I doubt the entire top is held on by those 4 screws, but I'll find out. We'll see what happens. Okay, well, you know, to my surprise, that whole top was just held on by 4 screws. And actually, this is going to work out pretty good having 2 of them here, because I don't have to take a break between steps. So what I've done here, this I'm just showing that the top came off, and you've got access to your circuit board, small circuit board for the control panel there, that heads into this, whatever's in there, but I can just show you over here. That is your main control panel there, and you just got some relays and some resistors and a big capacitor down there, but nothing looks blown. This unit here, of course, is the one that doesn't work, and it is probably an issue. As you can see, there is a fuse there, but the fuse is intact. That would be something that would be stopping the motor altogether, though. So it is probably a chip issue where something got too hot and just is never going to work again. But I have tapped on these relays pretty hard, trying to get it to you know, free up if something was stuck, and there's nothing happening. Still, when I'm pressing, as if you remember, this is the 2 main cycles here. You can see there. Surface stain and set-in stain would be surface stain and set-in stain, and this would be the hose. So these 2 will not work. Nothing happening there, but this one will work. And so what a technician would do is they would determine which one of these 2 boards has the problem. Either one of these chips here or that chip there is the problem, but they would replace the whole board. And it is probably this one, and that chip contains the data on what the rest of the circuit uses to control the cycle, to, you know, all the knowledge that the machine has is contained in that chip on how long to run its cycle, and which direction, and when to turn on the suction, and so on. So anyway, we're not going to fix it, but you know, this one might work. But we're going to continue to take it all the way apart to see how it works. Right here, of course, is the chemical, the bottom of the chemical tank, where you put your soap in. There's, of course, a hole in the bottom of the chemical tank with the rubber gasket, and it sucks your water and your soap in here. And it comes all the way through to this valve here, and that's what we're going to take a look at next. See what's going on there. Okay, getting farther into it here, as I had pointed out before, this is where the cleaning solution comes down into the workings of it, and it comes down through this hose and up and under and around to right here into this valve, which is going to be controlled by the computer to turn this on or off. And so there's going to be a solenoid in there that just pulls the valve. And yeah, maybe I'll take that apart. But that sends it down into this hose and into this T. I think that you can see that there's a T there. See there? Okay, so you got this way and that way. So when you follow this hose around, it goes to where the hand hose, you know, this cleaning hose here. And so basically, and I think that's all, I don't think there's any electronic control there. I think that it's all just valve depending on your, when you pull the trigger. So, see, like, if you watch that bubble there, and I'm pulling the trigger, see it moves. So, I think that just this trigger not being pulled closes this hose. So this hose is blocked off, so when that valve comes on and you're not using the hand attachment, that will send the solution down the other way, down that hose. And that sends it, of course, to the spot cleaning head. And so that's what's happening there, and this all looks good. It's a shame, all the plumbing looks good, but the electronics won't turn it on. But you know what? If this one ends up working, then I've got a whole bunch of spare parts. So anyway, I think the next thing we're going to do, the next screws I see, is this area down here. So we'll start to take apart the cleaning head there. I'm guessing that this electric motor here is all those gears that you heard grinding, where it's kneading the where it would be working the spot. There must be a gearbox in there, and that electric motor is turning that gearbox when it's told to. And this, I'm guessing, is going to be the big motor that provides the suction. But we'll get some more apart and we'll see what we can find down there. And yeah, I have stopped taking apart that one, and we'll concentrate on this one. Okay, so at this point I have completely removed the handheld hose. If you remember, it came in through there and went through to attach to that point there, as you can see over in this one. So I've just removed that just to get it completely out of the way, and now we're concentrating on this. Now, of course, this valve was up there, and I've taken off the screws to this cover plate to see what we've got underneath there. So when we pull that out, it exposes basically just tubes. You know, these things are covered in grease, you know, suggesting that it might be trying to make a seal, but I don't think so. The underside of the panel there was firmly up against it, but I don't think it was making a seal, because if you look right here, that's not a seal. And so I think that the grease is there just to reduce vibration. That's a guess. But anyway, what else I noticed here is this valve here. Now, when you have the handheld hose completely put away, it's supposed to go in there. I'll show you on this one. So when you're using it as the Spotbot, as the spot cleaner, you got to put the handheld device completely away, because there is a little button in there, and that has to be pushed down. And it's hard to push down, but I'm going to show you. See there? So when you put away the handheld cleaner, it pushes that valve, and will the soap through. So it is, when it's not pressed, it's closed, and so thus it would allow the suction for the handheld tube there. And then when you have that put away and open up that valve, you have the soap would go to the cleaning head, and so that's the way that is controlled. And that's about it for this segment. We've got to take apart the big part of it now, and we'll probably end up flipping it over. Maybe we'll take the motor out too. But this should be the good part. Let's see. Okay, so the first thing I did was I took that electric motor out, which, you know, curiously, it appears to be about the same size as the power wheels. The big difference, of course, is the fact that this is AC. But it's about the same size. Now, I have taken apart a Power Wheels, if you know that the kids ride around in their little Power Wheels trucks, and they're powered by two motors about this big, you know, going through gearboxes. But those are, of course, battery. They're DC. But this is a interesting little curious thing that I'm definitely going to keep. Good size AC electric motor. But now that was right there. And this Bendix was right in the middle of those 3 planetary gears. So let's take that plate off. And that's what we have. And so all 3 of those will turn, which makes me real anxious to see the other side of that. And we'll get there. Not quite yet. Alright, let's keep pulling screws off. Okay, so now when you get the whole cover off of the vacuum motor there, this, I'm just showing what it looked like before, and this is what you get. So the whole thing is out now, and the top of it is off, and so you can see the actual motor. And there's no seal on the top. It's just got, you know, cover on there. So there's the vacuum action is not happening up there. There's not supposed to be any water up there, of course. All that's supposed to be happening down here at the bottom. And here's the exhaust. This is the exhaust for the heat from the motor. But down here at the bottom end of it, this is the fins in there, see there? So this is your vacuum, and that whole thing sets, and that is sealed. That would be sealed up against the area down there. So this would vacuum air and it would pump water at the same time. So that is the mechanism for extracting the water out of the places that it's trying to seal. Now that, of course, this tube here goes into this exhaust contraption. This, of course, would be intake, and then exhaust in there. But it just had this tiniest little hole. There it is. See there? And then that comes around to there. So like if it got water in it, you see that lines up to this hole in the case. So I'm guessing, you know, the main hot air is supposed to be coming in through that vent. But I'm guessing if by some chance some water got in there, it's meant to go through there. Sorry, it's not focusing. There we go. And down and out. Kind of a overflow hole, I'm guessing. I don't know. I just happened to notice that. Anyway, so we've got all the electronics out of here now. And I think that we are about to flip it over to take a look at the gearbox and the cleaning head. Alrighty, so removing all the screws from the top part, which would be these screws right down here, and as you know, had all the electronics were loose as well, but it still wasn't letting this head go. So I flip it over, and what do you know, I find a whole bunch more screws. Just letting you know what I'm doing. Take this panel off and see what's under there. Okay, so this is what we find under there. And okay, everything makes sense now. If you remember, so the plate that came off also has a gasket on it in exactly the same shape as this big area here to make a seal there, because of course this would be the bottom of the vacuum motor, and so it's providing the suction through those holes there, and that would suck up through that tube, and that tube is this tube. If you remember when the whole thing was upside down, that is the one that leads straight down through there. Right through there. Hard to see now. But if you imagine this thing upside down, it was like that. So that's what we have. And okay, so then there was a bit of an optical illusion there. There is the bottom side of that electric motor, this electric motor here. If you remember, we found the 3 planetary gears, and there they are. So what's on the other side of that is just one Bendix. And that does not move, so it was an optical illusion. I was thinking that all 3 of these were going to be spinning 3 different things on the other side of the plate. But what they do is they spin the entire plate and then spin that other Bendix, so it's just a reduction gear to give it a lot more power to turn this big gear here that meshes with the teeth to turn this entire assembly. So that's what's going on there. And I think we've got everything now. This head should come off now. There's not going to be much to it. They're spring loaded, so there might be something neat to see under there, but the next scene I'll have this entire thing pulled apart and we'll see what's in there, just out of curiosity. Okay, now this is getting funny. So remember what I just said about that plate, and that was all correct, but it wasn't going directly to that big gear right there. This goes to that Bendix, and then that Bendix goes into the middle of another set of spider gears, which turn the entire drum, and then in turn turn that gear. So there are more reduction going on than I had first thought, which still makes complete sense because it's got to be really hard to turn that head. Okay, now we're going to take this entire thing apart, which appears to already have more to it than I thought. Let's find out. Okay, well this surprised me. As I'm pulling this apart, I find a hose attached to this one. And you can see there the array inside there. This is sealed so to get equal pressure to all of these little fingers, and I'm noticing that they have holes in them. And so this is where the cleaning solution comes out and gets kneaded. These are hard rubber, and as it's kneading into the carpeting, it's dispensing the soap in deep into the stain. That's really a surprise. That's why I take apart every part of every piece to find stuff like that. That's really neat. And of course I got 6 low tension springs that I can keep, and we're still taking it apart. Who knows, there might be something else in there. But there are the 2 water extraction nozzles, and I think they came even to the edge of the cleaning area, so that I guess this would even work on a tile floor. That's my guess. It's probably advertised to do that, and everybody knows that already, but this is where it was sucking in from those 2 things. And then on the other side of it, I don't have my snap ring pliers, so I can't get that gear off right now. But you can see that the whole contraption it's got this big gear here that's offset from that one, so it's not spinning in a complete circle. It's kind of an oval pattern that as it goes around, it's doing a kind of a spirograph thing. But let's take it apart the rest of the way and see if there's anything else neat in there. Okay, so here's the rest of it. Now this was the next neat thing that I found. The whole cleaning disc was spinning around on the plate there on these little plastic balls. They're covered in this waterproof grease, and so that is how it was rolling around, this whole thing here. You can see the groove there, the circular groove that it was running on, and that's pretty neat. Otherwise, that's everything. I think that's everything. Here's a look at all that. Here's all the springs I got out of there. And the only other thing is to get this thing out of there. And there you go. So you have this and this and that and that and that. And I just lost all those little plastic balls. And here's all the screws that came out of it. Now this is pretty neat. You see the ones that are darker in color? Those are all stainless steel because they were in the area that was going to be contacting water all the time. And so those screws right there are worth keeping. And I'm definitely gonna. The rest of them, I've got so many I'll probably throw them out. But that in a nutshell, right there, that mess is a Bissell Spotbot. And must say it was pretty neat. Very compact, very well planned out in there. This one here, other than a malfunction in the control panel, I would say that it would probably still work. And my guess is that this one over here completely still works. So I'll just put its top back on. I think that's all I took apart. Yeah, I'll put the top back on and we'll have a working unit there and a whole bunch of spare parts. I'll weed through this and decide what I want to keep. Otherwise, that wraps it up. Okay, I don't know what's next. It'll be a surprise to both of us, but I appreciate you watching, and everybody have a good one.